Welcome to the 12 Monkeys podcast, a Southgate Media Group production, where we talk all about Sci-Fi Channel's reimagining of the classic science fiction film originally produced by Terry Gilliam and now produced for television by Terry Matalas. I'm your host, Blaire and Graves, executive producer of Professional Geek Podcast, and with me today is Kyle Tremblay, the editor-in-chief at TVBinges.com. You can find us on Twitter at Blaire Loves TV and at Kyle Loves TV. And remember, both Kyle and Blaire have an E at the end. And you can follow this podcast's Twitter handle at 12monkeys.pod. Hi, Kyle. How you doing today?
Oh, Blaire, I've got my leather jacket, I've got my bell bottoms, and my disco music. I'm ready to head back to 1975.
Oh, dear.
Yeah? No? Too much? Too much to start with? No?
Nope. That's just about right.
Good. Okay. I'll take a page out of Cole's book.
Yeah. Do you also have your single leather glove?
Oh, you mean my fingerless leather gloves? Yes. Like Ramsey, who was for 90% of this episode wearing what I would call a party shirt, which was a good look for him with fingerless gloves. Yeah, he looked like he was in like an early Michael Jackson video. It was great.
It was pretty amazing, the fashion in this episode.
Yeah, no, and the fashion really delivered, and I really think. Just to dive right in, we haven't even introduced it. Maybe you should introduce the episode before I start giving my thoughts on the 1970s fashion.
Yes. Today, Kyle, you and I will be discussing Season 2, Episode 6, titled Immortal, which was written by Ian Sobel, I think that's how you say his name, and Matt Morgan. Sobel worked with Matalas on Nikita and was a staff writer on From Dusk Till Dawn, the TV show, and Morgan also wrote for the From Dusk Till Dawn TV show. As of this recording, it appears to be the case that this was their first time writing an episode of 12 Monkeys, although they have been story editors in the past, and I could have that wrong, so if y'all are listening, please let me know and I will correct it in the next episode. So that's the episode we'll be discussing. Would you like to discuss the fashion, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I just took a brief break there from our Fashion Talk podcast. No, I liked that the tone was set right away as they time traveled with just a blaring like fog hat musical interlude, which was great, and with the slow ride song, of course, and then I feel like Cole was, since Cassie was on sort of babysitting duty with Jennifer this week, I felt like Cole was really freed to explore the studio space with his terrible ideas. Like, with Cassie, he kind of has to, like, you know, she sort of takes control. And with Ramsey, Cole's just sort of, like, he's running wild. You know, he's doing what he wants. He's drinking his what was it, Tab soda, and he's just going crazy. And
eating lots of flapjacks.
Oh, eating all the flapjacks. Cole was like the third episode of the Comedy Central show Review, which is a deep cut.
Yeah, that is. No, I do love that the through line of the series is that Cole loves to eat and drink. Like, that's just like his favorite thing in the entire world is just to eat and drink.
And like whatever time period he's in, he just immediately adjusts. Like, if he went to like the medieval times, not the restaurant, the actual times, he would be like eating like big legs of like roasted lamb. Like he just adapts to wherever he is, and he basically goes to like the buffet and eats everything.
Yes, but you're right. Whenever he's with Cassie, she, as the person who is more knowledgeable of actual past and actual modern day, more of a reliable human being in general.
Yeah, in general.
She sort of always goes out of her way to take the reins and be in control of any situation, even when there's so many elements that are out of her control. She's very good at sort of navigating Cole, but left to his own devices, especially with Ramsey, it's like a buddy cop film where the cops aren't really good cops.
No. Well, the cops are actually misleading real cops in this buddy cop film.
Yes.
Yeah. It was quite a pair, and obviously the whole thing was just a sort of setup to just have that bromance moment between those two at the end. It was kind of like a bros day out. Like, it was like a Hangover movie, kind of.
A little bit. If the Hangover movie had serial killers that dismembered their victims.
Yeah, right. Just a minor like interlude for a room with body parts everywhere.
Yeah, I was prepared for serial killer, but I don't know that I was ready for body parts serial killer. That, like, Saw level creepiness. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, well, and we've had some horror scenes. You know, we talked about them last week. Like, this the show is pushing it a little further, I think, this season in terms of embracing the scary aspects of the story, and it's also pushing it further, embracing the funny aspects of the story. I think 12 Monkeys is getting a little bit more just, going a little further in both directions this year.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I would say that for the most part, they've had some pretty big hits, but I'm sorry to say that this episode is a little bit of a miss for me. I don't know how you felt about it, but this might be my least favorite episode of 12 Monkeys. It was still very enjoyable. I'm starting to overthink the plot too much, I think, in terms of how the primaries actually function and why they actually function. And I'm wondering if there's a logic step that I'm missing, but in this episode in particular, with the character Kyle Slade, the homicidal primary, I had a really hard time connecting the pieces, like letting go of what's the phrase? Where you just accept the premise. I was having a little bit of a hard time just accepting the premise.
Well, let's go through it then. What's your beef, Blaire? What's your issue? Like, where are you at? Because maybe there's a good chance that you understand it better than I do, and that once you help me understand it, then I'll be upset too. But maybe I'm just in that happy zone where I'm just blissfully ignorant and just enjoying the serial killer 70s theme.
Well, if you just take it at face value that we're going on adventures through time and killing or saving primaries, whatever is the best way to do it, then I think it works really, really well. I'm still not sold on the existence of primaries themselves, I think is my problem. So when you've only just introduced me to two primaries previously, Jennifer, who I'm only just starting to like, and then Tommy from the 50s, and then you introduced me to the serial killer. Of course, the primaries aren't all going to be good people, but with the exception of me now just starting to like Jennifer, I don't particularly like the primaries, and I don't particularly like going around trying to save them. Obviously, they don't save him in the end of this episode because he is deserving of death. He's done so many horrible things. But I don't think I understand them very well, and beyond that, I don't think I like them enough to want to understand them. Does that make sense?
Yes, a couple things.
Okay.
When you say save them, what they're doing is saving them from being paradoxed.
Right, they're saving them from being paradoxed.
Killing them or keeping them alive is irrelevant, as Jones makes clear, maybe not clear enough to Cole as he sends him out, that she doesn't need him to save the serial killer. She needs to prevent the serial killer from being paradoxed.
Right.
The reason that the reason that they have to do that is that time will collapse. If the primaries are sort of if you think of time as a big tent, the primaries are the stakes and ropes that are holding that tent up. And so if you take enough of them away, the tent collapses and we get the Red Forest. That's why they have to be saved. They don't have to be saved because they're worthy of being saved. And I think on the other side of that is we've seen the one primary that we really know is Jennifer. And we've seen what being a primary did to her, in that her mind is flooded with all kinds of thoughts through like all kinds of time. Like she has a very muddled perception of the world that is in some ways, of course, like supernaturally insightful, but it manifests in her behavior. She was locked in a mental institution, obviously. I don't think it's a far stretch if they can do that to someone that it could turn them into a serial killer. The serial killer's motivations, as I understand it in this episode, is that he was killing other primaries.
And then distributing their parts around so that they couldn't be paradoxed.
Yes. He was preventing primaries from being paradoxed by killing them first. And so he was doing he was doing a service, but he was also a bit touched in the head, which is why the body parts were. I mean, he wasn't like cool. It wasn't like this was all like a super well thought out plan on his part. He was doing something that had motivations towards that direction, but also he definitely has a little issues.
Right, and I totally understand, as you're saying, like the pillars holding up the building, or however you want to put it, that the primaries are that. I just haven't bought into that yet, I guess, and it's hard to buy into it I mean, it's easy to buy into it when you see this great episode where they choose the morally correct thing every time, whether or not that's the right thing to do for time, like i.e. saving Victoria, the waitress. But so they're always doing the morally correct thing, and that's good. That makes me enjoy the characters. It makes me enjoy the story. I'm just not. I mean, I guess I just have to get in and start to accept this primary thing more than I have yet, and that's honestly all that it is, and that's a personal preference almost certainly than it is a lack of understanding. Just I want to actually like understand it a little bit like physically more, if that makes sense. Like, why are they chosen? Why are they touched? Does God exist? Like, why do these supernatural creatures exist? Or do I just need to like let go of that and just go along for the ride? That's sort of where I'm at.
I don't know, but I also think 12 Monkeys is doing more to explain itself now than it ever has before. I don't recall season 1 particularly giving a lot of answers in that regard. And I feel like season 1 was a lot more open-ended on what's happening. I feel like right now I have a better grasp on what's happening than I have at any point in the series. Because they literally explained it. Like, they explained the whole thing. So I mean, I guess for me, I'm always, especially with a sci-fi show, I'm always operating on the principle that I'm going to buy the premise. And this to me is a premise element of the show. This is part of the world of the show. Now, you know, there's things that can be built on top of that you may or may not buy into. But to me, as long as a premise element of a show isn't just on its face ridiculous, and I don't think this is. I don't think it's a crazy idea that certain individuals have been, you know, chosen for reasons that, as you said, are not clear to represent. I guess chosen by time itself, because we did establish that time is an entity.
A being.
It's a thinking entity. So I would imagine that time itself has chosen them. Would be my answer to that. And whether time itself is God is an interesting, I think, thought experiment on this show. That whether what more like what humans have referred to as God is actually time. And if the show isn't a quest to essentially kill God, that's the sort of metaphorical way we're working on here. That the 12 months is about to kill God.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, they're trying to cause everybody to be immortal, so they're trying to bring everybody to the same playing field. So you're not necessarily killing God so much as like taking away God's power.
Well, they would be, because time would no longer exist.
Right.
In this case, time is the great orderer of the universe, and they would be eliminating the order in the universe. And therefore, if time no longer, I'm saying it's a direct parallel to God. It's not. Time isn't a power of God's. Time is God in this story. And then if you took time away, which is what the Red Forest represents, that's no longer a governing force in the universe. It ceases to exist, basically.
Yes. Well, my final note on all of that, I guess, is just that I had accepted the premise. I've accepted almost all of these premises. I'm not sure how you say that. Mm-hmm. But like one of the things that really helped me feel grounded in the show was that that Kat had used physics to create time travel, and so they were trying to speak to us on at least a pseudoscientific level earlier on about how all of these things were possible and how they were sort of moving matter around or moving a being around. And now I'm just sort of I like science fiction to feel a little bit grounded. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that the primaries start to have a more grounded focus, or that there's some kind of explanation that I can sort of buy into, because right now, like the entity time choosing them, I'm just like, this is a lot of figurative stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
and I just want I want a touchstone, basically. So
yeah, well, they have introduced I would say a more directly supernatural element.
Yes.
Especially with the focus on the witness now. That we're seeing all kinds of stuff happening.
Goodness,
with him. So I
loved that end. I loved Cassie's sort of conversation with the witness, as it were. I thought that was spectacular. And speaking of like horror elements being used in a really, really great way. I think that I was very in on Jennifer and Cassie's story, even though that Jennifer was very sparse in this episode. And I was very in on Cole and Ramsey as well. It was just very gross. And
Yes.
a lot of things happening that were very unpleasant. But I'm very interested to see where they're going to be going with the witness and how, I mean, he can take, it appears to be the case that he can take the form of anybody if he could take the form of Cole, right? Because he took the form of Aaron, who may or may not be dead, and then Cole, who is very much alive. We didn't know previously that the witness could change form. So this is a brand new thing that we're learning about.
Yeah. So what we know about the witness, which may not be true, is from our serial killer friend who said that the witness is just a man. But of course, the serial killer thought the witness was the messenger that he captured. Turns out he wasn't, obviously. But then we see the witness do this little morphing trick. And I guess you were very close to being right about Aaron. The witness actually wasn't Aaron, of course.
I know, I was so close.
Very close to being right. I mean, half credit.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the witness took Aaron's form and then took Cole's form, and then right at the end seemed to borrow a Game of Thrones term, seemed to warg into Cassie and take her over in some capacity. Which makes me wonder if Cassie is ultimately who the witness is going to be, maybe? If that's where we're, like, heading? Just because he seemed to, like, inhabit her, right? Like,
yeah, and he spoke to her on a level that is very Cassie, of her, the fact that she is a doctor and she's seen all of these horrible atrocities happen for what is considered, like, before what you would call somebody's time, somebody dying because they got a disease or they got, they were in a terrorist attack or something like that. Yeah, it is very, that's an interesting theory that ultimately Cassie is the enemy of the show.
Yeah, which would be an interesting one. I don't think we have nearly enough information about the witness to draw that. It's just like speculation, maybe something that could happen.
It would go well with her name in the Cassandra myth.
There you go.
The mythology, in Greco-Roman mythology, Cassandra is a woman who is cursed to speak the truth and nobody believes her. Mm-hmm. So I could definitely see the witness being Cassie in that she is learning about the truth, about time, about how it destroys and it dissolves, and leading her to try to take action to stop it.
Yeah,
but that wouldn't make sense with Olivia trying to kill her.
Yeah, well, yeah, but Olivia was obviously very. Olivia was given specific orders to keep her alive. Mm. Remember, the order was to keep Cassie alive, and Olivia was very upset about that and wanted to kill her. Basically, I wonder if the show is going to go in a direction where it stops being clear who the good guys are. And that's what I'm wondering with that scene with the witness, because the witness was presented in what I think was a fairly sympathetic light, where he actually had he or it or whatever had a chance to present its agenda in a way that made sense. It's basically trying to eliminate death, which through time. That time is equates to death, and then if you eliminate time, you eliminate death, and everything is eternal. And I wonder if we're going to go in a direction where Cassie joins Team Witness and it stops being so clear what the right thing to do is. And if that sort of the show opens that door where we're no longer the resistance fighting against the inevitable end, but it starts, the show starts to sort of re-examine its own assumptions that the inevitable end is actually a bad thing. And I just wonder if that could be a direction where the show goes that would be much more esoteric and kind of out there than where it is now, and it's already pretty far out there. but
it is pretty far out there.
Yeah,
I think actually now that you're bringing that back up, that was another thing that I sort of had trouble getting to with Aaron, or the witness using Aaron's face. Saying to Cassie that he was trying to stop death, where the premise of season 1 was that there was this huge pandemic that wiped out a huge chunk of humanity. And that, to me, those two pieces don't fit. And I think that was one of the things that actually kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It was, you're trying to stop death, and yet you're killing all of these people in the process. But at the same time, they can all kind of live happily, because once you stop time, they exist and never did exist and exist forever, right? Like,
yes.
that's
Once you, if your end game is to eliminate death, then killing people has no meaning, right?
yeah.
The slaughter of like 90% of the population doesn't matter because they always will exist if you're successful. That's a great point though, and I'm trying to connect them in my head right now because I wasn't thinking in those terms. But yeah, what was the utility of the plague to the army of the 12 monkeys? Yeah.
So yeah, the problem that I had then is if we have this huge plague and we spent this whole season working on this plague and the whole first 2 episodes of this season trying to stop Jennifer from continuing the plague because she could have, or anybody, Team Witness could have gotten that bottle. And then now the witness is trying to tell Cassie that he or she or it is trying to eliminate death. The only, I have a really hard time allowing those 2 things to coexist. The only thing that I could think is that the witness is just trying to appeal to Cassie's sensibilities as a doctor. Well, is that the witness will say whatever the witness needs to say to get somebody on Team Witness.
Well, again, eliminating death has absolutely nothing to do with killing people. These are operating on different planes that do not intersect. The idea of people dying is the idea of people dying on Earth is irrelevant in the conversation that the witness is having. Because the witness is having a conversation in which death does not exist. So if you kill someone on Earth, that's an irrelevant fact of the conversation. So I don't think that there's a conflict, like a logical conflict there. I don't know if I understand the utility of it. Like why that was a necessary step, like to bring about the Red Forest. You know, why all of that happened. Does something involve, which again makes me think, maybe this is all a recruitment effort of Cassie for some reason. And for some reason, she's like a chosen special one. Because maybe all those events had to happen in order to put Cassie in the position that she's in now to recruit her for whatever reason. The specifics are certainly not available at the present time. But that's sort of what makes me think that maybe there's like another shoe to drop in terms of characters, and we thought it might be Aaron as the witness. Maybe it's Cassie eventually becomes the witness. Maybe it's something else we don't see. It's probably something else we don't see. But it seems like something has to connect the first season to the second.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of characters that just due to the fact that the fact that Cassie and Cole and Ramsey, for that matter, are interacting with primaries. I feel like primaries would recognize the witness. But then they prove that wrong with Kyle thinking that the messenger is the witness, and I'm talking myself into a hole.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't think the witness... I feel like the witness is someone who exists as in our grand metaphor would be a Satan in this metaphor. The witness is someone who is on the opposite side of this, not someone who is working with time, right? The witness is someone who has transcended time in some way and obviously has a level of control over the natural world that goes beyond time in order to like morph into different people. And so I don't know if the primaries seem to be purely agents of time that have been sort of deputized by the concept of time. Again, containing the metaphor, angels, if you will, who are sort of, the sort of soldiers of time in order to carry out its will and keep it going. And the witness would be in opposition to that. And so I don't know if that necessitates that the primaries know who the witness is or even understand what it is.
That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, again, yeah, this is a rabbit hole, and I guess for me, it's not necessarily a problem that I don't understand it, because I feel like if I did understand it, the show would be boring, to be quite honest. Like I think a lot of the fun of 12 Monkeys is that everything is kind of just out of reach. And I feel like it's been that way since the start. Like I don't feel like I've ever had a great grasp on everything. I mean, like the Red Forest was introduced well before we knew what the Red Forest was. There was that super trippy episode in the middle of season 1 where it was introduced, and we were like, "What in the world is going on here?" And then it was explained like just 2 episodes ago. So
right, I'm looking forward to seeing what 12 Monkeys brings. As you said, they seem to explain things if you give them the time, and I hope that they get to season 3. We're still pushing for that, because I'm really excited to learn more. I'm just at a point where I really kind of need a little bit of grounding, because there's a couple of things that seem to be in conflict with one another.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I totally get that. And yeah, I who knows if I'll get to that point as well. But I thought I enjoyed this episode mostly because of the leather jackets and fingerless gloves. And so we'll see what next week brings.
Yes, I'm excited to see what next week brings, and I'm excited to see what happens with Cassie, because now that she has been touched by the witness, it'll be a very interesting story.
Absolutely.
This wraps up our 17th episode of the 12 Monkeys podcast. Before we go, I want to mention a few things. You can download and subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Libsyn. You can also hear all of our podcasts at our website, southgatemediagroup.com. Please subscribe to the show and also rate us. Check out my new podcast, Professional Geek Podcast, a show about how to be a professional and also a geek. And follow this show on Twitter at 12monkeys.pod, and Kyle and I at Kyle Loves TV and at Blaire Loves TV. Remember, both Kyle and Blaire have an E at the end. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.